Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We have bellied up on, I don't even know what, I know it's the first Wednesday in February. We'll go with that. It's the 5th. It's February 5th. Someday I will put a calendar in front of me as I do this every week and mention to everyone that I've forgotten to put a calendar up in front of me. How do I I'm trying to fix some stuff here. For some reason, my StreamYard, every week I have to edit my privacy. For whatever reason, it puts me to only me, but that's fixed now. So, alrighty, folks, we've bellied up to the bar today. We are talking about one of my favorite topics outside of sales, and I think it has to do with sales, but I think it's probably one of the most overused terms that people get scared of, or they think they've got to do stupid elevator pitches, or they've got to have an ask, or any of these things. And if you don't know what I'm talking about networking. And joining us today is a ninja at this stuff. One of the only people that I know, and really, I'm going to say the only person I know that has somehow managed to create a networking group that has lasted not just through the pandemic, but a networking group that every week goes on. And joining us from the great white north of New York, it's probably like negative something degrees where he's at. I know it. It is Mr. Paul Hook.
Nice. Wonderful. Very well produced opening. So I'm not used to that. Just turning on Zoom. Very good. Yeah, I'm actually I don't think I'm too far from you.
Where are you at?
I'm often up north, but I'm not. I'm in Guilderland now. So
you're still on the other side from me. I'm in Central Brunswick, so I'm,
Oh, okay.
Only in the capital region would somebody be like, dude, like that's really far away. Like, dude, it's like 20 minutes, like at the best 25.
Well, you got to go over a bridge. It's really far away, right?
All right, we'll make a left turn already. Nowhere on the freaking planet, other than maybe like Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri, maybe we'll go with there. Do people get completely freaked out the way they do in this area by the distance of a bridge? Like, people are like, you're on that side of the Hudson? I don't go over there. And folks, if you don't know what we're talking about,
right?
Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, if you ever come to the capital region of New York, you'll understand. If people are like, you're on that side of the bridge, oh my God. And then Saratoga is like its own other thing. You got to go over a different bridge to get to that one.
You need a passport.
Yeah, you got a passport to go there. So, well, let's get into it here, folks. And we're going to be talking to Paul about networking, how to build a network, what that takes. As always, though, before we get too far, we got to talk about the big board up here, that sticker and a cause. If you've got something you're supporting, something you believe in, something that's happening for you, maybe it's your own podcast, you've got a band, I don't care what it is, and you want to get that information out there, you can reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, X. Our website's theabovethebarpodcast.com, TikTok, our email is theabovethebarpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on any of those locations. Let me know what you got going on. We will read about, I'll tell you where to send me the sticker at, and we'll read about you live here on the air so everybody can know about you. Look, folks, there's no better advertising than free advertising if you ain't got to pay for it. Trust me. If you ever saw my advertising budget, you know what I'm talking about. So make sure you reach out to us on all those locations. That's sticker and a cause. Someday, Paul, I'm going to fill this thing up. I don't know why, but I'll auction it off. I'll probably get like $10 for it. But it does. You read this, right? I mean, you're reading this. That's
yeah. I see that every time you're on our hour. I see that. Yeah.
So, but then we got to talk about our sponsors, and that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson and Coxsackie, and Schoharie. They are the largest window treatment company in North America, focused on everything from blinds, shades, shutters, tint. They do it all, anything you want, and they take care of everything, folks. This isn't one of those deals where you got to measure, then you got to send it. They got to send it off to somebody else, and then somebody else has to install it, or you got to install it. They handle everything, even taking down that old, grimy, nasty stuff that's been up there since you got those 1976 bicentennial model shades in your home. They'll take care of that stuff and get it out there. And this month during February, it is 20% off of your entire order. But it gets better than that. If you tell them you're there to belly up to the bar, meaning that you heard it here on the Above the Bar podcast, they're going to go ahead and take care of you and give you an additional 5% off of that order. That's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Budget Blinds of Hudson and Schoharie, or it's Hudson and Coxsackie, and Budget Blinds of Schoharie. They got too many Budget Blinds in there. Again, give them a call. Paul, you look like you need new window treatments in that place. Like you gotta update that, man. Like what you got going on there? You got some rod pockets, some like top.
I don't understand your jargon there, blind guy, but
I see it all.
There's just sheer on one side shears. I do have blinds on the behind the other one, but it's nighttime. You can't really see it.
We're gonna have to work on that. Fix that.
Okay.
Out. But all right, folks. So we're getting into it. So again, let me give you a little bit of background here on Paul. I think the only thing are you part of the Sienna cult also?
No, I went to Sage.
Sage, okay.
Yeah.
That's where my daughter went. She played basketball for Sage. The only time that the girls basketball team made the NCAAs, my daughter was on the team.
Oh, great.
Yep. So let's see here. Paul is an agent, a tri-decade, if that's a thing, agency veteran, decorated marketeer. Is that like a mouseketeer? Marketeer. Led business development, marketing efforts, 4 different companies in the capital region. When you hear us say capital region, folks, we're talking about around the Albany area of New York. We're not talking about down in DC or nothing like that. Let's see, heavily involved in promoting regional for technology, semiconductor development. You've done a little bit of everything, but I think where you really have Albany Business Review is a 40 under 40 in 2005. That can't be possible, Paul. You're not even 40 yet. I mean, that was 2005. So where were you, like 20 years old back then? What was going on?
You were 15. You could send in a paper application, so they couldn't quite research you as well and figure it out.
They couldn't disprove that you were there.
A while ago.
I mean, it's fair enough, but you've done. I mean, in this capital region area, from a marketing and networking standpoint, I mean, you've had your fingerprints on a lot of things in this area. Things that people would probably be pretty surprised to know. Is there anything that you would say is most notable out of all that people would be like, oh, really? He did that?
Well, probably just mentioning Sage so one of the agencies I ran, it was a branding agency. This is how, when we get into the hour conversation about networking, that's how that all launched when I was there in the pandemic. You remember that, right? A few years ago.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Lockdown and nobody could work.
I kind of remember it. Yeah.
At home. When I was running that was called TinyCo, TYNY. It was based on the old Troy, New York postmark. I only did it for about a year and a half, and then the world shut down. But the biggest thing we did was rebrand Russell Sage. So that's probably, as far as a visual or something that you might put your finger on, that I really was leading. You talk about the economic development work that I had done that's in my bio. So I did a lot of work to promote the region to inevitably get global foundries here. But so did dozens of other people. So I was at the agency. I was involved with it, and when I was in Germany and San Francisco to promote Luther Forest, to inevitably get this fab here, along with we were competing with other parts of the country. So it was a 10, 12-year project. I was only involved the last 4 or 5, but there was a lot of effort, long-term effort. Economic development's a long play, so it took a long time, but it worked, and we're a better region for it. So I had my hands in there too, but again, it's success as 1,000 fathers or whatever the line is. But it's on the marketing side. We were the agency for 2 of the organizations that were really leading that charge. So those are some of the bigger things as far as stuff in the region. Been involved with other campaigns and other brands, and got a long list of companies I've worked with. But those are probably 2 of the more well known publicly.
That's all. Wow, I didn't know you were involved in that. So you did that. You were with agencies back in those days, but now if I'm understanding, and look, folks, I talk to Paul every week just about, and I'm still going to ask questions like an imbecile because I'm like, I don't know if I know the answer to this question. So, but nowadays you're independent. You run your own show nowadays.
Yeah, that was a product of the this lockdown pandemic that I mentioned. So that agency was still kind of young, so it didn't really last. So the funding ended, and then I ended up on my own. But it was the best thing I ever did. Should have done it sooner, but at the same time, I know certain things needed to happen for me to get to that place, to get more exposure, more confidence, etc. So that's that's the way life usually works out. But now I've been on my own for almost coming up on 5 years, and that's what paulhook.com. I went to an AMA breakfast, American Marketing Association, not medical, American Marketing Association breakfast years ago, and this speaker they had said, if you don't own your name as a URL, buy it now. And I did. It's like 15 years ago, and I never did anything with it. And then when I went out on my own, you can imagine hook.com is not available, or it's super expensive. So paulhook.com, I owned it. So, but the name of the agency, my own agency, is just Hook. I own a one syllable word that's an advertising term. Like, there isn't a better name to go with.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So yeah, I happen to, have that. And that's something that, has a lot of consonants and numbers in it, really long name. I've got this really simple one syllable word. So I did that, but to be honest, most of even for the first almost 2 years, most of the work I do are people that know me, and, it's from the network, building a network up, and just people that have known me, worked with me on different boards, different jobs, and different projects. And all this was coming to me without really promoting it. I finally did a launch like 2 years in, a party, launch party, and got some swag and stuff out there, but I hadn't needed it, and I had plenty of work to keep myself and my one employee. We have one part-time employee and myself currently, and then I just build teams based on what I need. So this is my office and my home. I don't have a building with all the the expenses and the utilities and all that, but most people are fine not meeting me in my kitchen. I go to them, and or this, everybody became video conferencing experts during the pandemic. So this became natural to stream or not stream, but to have video conferencing, whether you're
like
Zoom or Teams,
Google Meets. And well,
Yep.
It's funny you bring that up. I always think about what was the one I actually started using it when I was first podcasting.
Skype,
not Skype. Like, you want to talk about a company that should have had the bull by the horn.
I know. I say that all the time.
Drop the ball.
I mean, they
because we all had a Skype number, and if you did anything, if you had friends or anyone that lived overseas, those are the only people that I know that still use Skype. Is if you're like in the US and you have family overseas, they're like, yeah, we Skype call because it's easier with them because of the phone number. Those are the only people I know that use that. And look, folks, as everyone starts joining us, or if you're listening to the audio version of this, you can check out what Paul's got going on paulhook.com. Or if you want to know about our hour, it's ROUR, hour, HOUR .network, not .net, but .network. And you can see what Paul's got going on. So you're in, you're in the throes of this. You're in a small company, got some things going. Pandemic hits, does to everybody what all the pandemics have done. And those of you that are joining us, please, if you got questions, drop them into the chat there and give us that like, share, and follow. It might sound cliche, but trust me, it really does make a difference. But so all this is going on, and you've got to go ahead and create. You've got to build your own new network, and you create. Like, was our hour the first one you created? Was there other iterations before this? How did our hour come about?
Well, it actually happened right. Well, it happened right during the beginning of the lockdown, like the very next week, because I ran this agency, but prior to that, I had run business development for a couple of other agencies, director of marketing, but I had a business development role at Zone 5, and then over it, I was VP of business development. So then I go to TinyCo, and I'm running the whole place, but it's new, so I have to bring work in, right? So I was one of the last ones that went to the office, when you still could. It was me and another guy, and they finally said, okay, you're not essential, go home. As I already knew, but all right, I'm going to just stay home and work there. But then I'm just like, I can't talk to anybody, or I can't see anybody. I was on 5 boards at the time, I think. And I would, I used to think every week, where should I be to be able to run into people, or have this coffee meeting, or this lunch, or go to maybe Wellington's downtown because so many people pass through, or, places in Troy, because that's where our office was. And then all of a sudden, zero. So I said to a couple friends, business associates and friends and out there that are, in the business world, I said, you want to try one of these happy hour, virtual happy hour things? And, so 5 of us did the first one. We did it as a happy hour to start. And we did that, and it worked. It was cool. It was fun. People were, all like getting used to this new life,
New technology,
but it was an outlet, and just a way to stay connected. So I did it another week, and then I did another week, and I realized I just started inviting different people, and I wasn't really planning on this to, let's do this for a few weeks until this thing goes away, right? Which didn't happen, but so we just keep doing it. And then I realized that some of the people would either be more comfortable in the morning, or that time wasn't great, or they weren't really drinkers, or whatever the reason was for not doing it. So like let me do a more intimate, maybe 4-person coffee call on a Wednesday. And that was maybe 3 weeks later, I think 4 weeks later. And so that just kept going as actually the coffee one, we did one this morning. So I think you might have heard me say it on the call. So next Wednesday will be the 250th Wednesday morning call we've done, only missing 2 weeks. And it was straight up until last Christmas when it was a Wednesday. So I had to stop, but we went every single week. Even when I was in San Francisco, I'd get up at 5:30 and do it. I didn't want to break the streak, and more and more people come to so that the happy hour one, just to back up a second, the happy hour one I stopped doing the virtual ones about a year and a half later, because things opened back up. People started going back out, and it's 5 o'clock on a Thursday. If you're back to work or your kids in school, I was getting less people or the same people. So instead of just stopping it, I actually just did it for a few months, just on the first Thursday. I started doing it in person last Thursday of the month, and figured, okay, we started at Frog Alley. I'd done some work for them way back. So the
place. I like their beer.
Yeah, and they got a great space, and they got a lot of space. And this is, if you can, dial back your Wayback Machine and remember June of 2021, when people were starting to get out there, but they were still a little cautious about,
right.
Okay, some were wearing masks and all that, but also anxious to have some human contact and, see a person, not on a screen. So the first one was June 2021 on their patio at Frog Alley. And then I went to a brewery in Del Mar, the Real McCoy, which had outdoor picnic area and all that. So I was picking places where people would be comfortable together. And then I've done 42 of those, I think. So I think every month I rotate, and I just go counterclockwise because of how it started in the county. So it's this past month, last week was Saratoga County up in Malta. And then this next this month, the end of this month will be Schenectady County, and then Albany and the Rensselaer, and that. So, and I haven't repeated a place, and it grows, and more people come in each time, depending on where they live or what they're up to. We get a different mix of folks, and it's the same, as what the experience is like on the call. Oh, it's just organic conversation. There's no agenda. There's no. I think that's why, and one of the reasons it keeps going, because it's fun and it's no pressure. There's no homework.
Well, that's the other thing about it is, and I feel like every so often we realize that there's a different group at the live from the call, because even today we had a couple of people, not Kelly, Leanne and Jeff, that were on the call this morning. I think one of them had only ever done the lives, and the rest of us were, they had either done lives or had sat in on it. And it's such a unique thing with it all. But as you're developing this thing and you're creating, let's call it what it is. It's a non-for-profit networking event that it's like me and the podcast. I have one sponsor, but for the most part, all this is me for me doing what I want to do because I enjoy it and I enjoy what I get out of it. This is my networking. And I'll name drop. And folks, if you ever want to see what we got going on, it's 8:30 on Wednesdays. It's ourhour.network. You can get the link there. It's the same link every week. If you haven't realized it, we've been going through an hour phase with some of our guests that have been on here. Yeah. It's becoming, it might end up becoming like a ritual. I'm going to get Steve on just because I feel like it's going to be so entertaining for me. No one else, just me. Like no one else is going to tune in.
Which Steve you mean? I think I know. Right.
Oh, there's only one Steve. Like we had that whole entire, God, where is he? Because I don't want him to think I'm ever talking bad about it, because I love him. But he had that stretch where he would get up and his camera would tip down and only be faced at his crotch the entire time he went through that. And I'm like, I love it. I just love every minute. And then Dr. Tom and I just stare at each other, and we know that we're looking at each other, but we know we're not looking at each other, and just laugh about it.
No, there's plenty of colorful characters that are different. Yeah. And it's those that are, we call the somewhat regulars, and it's, I always say, once you've been on once, you've got the link. I don't actually, when you get, if you go on the Hour network site, it really just one page. It kind of explains what it is and how it started. And it has a link to send me a note if you want to join. So I'll get the link to, the one thing I don't do is I don't blast the link out because I can't handle 60 people. And I also kind of want to have an idea who's coming, but I never exclude anybody. I'm always welcome to do it. I just can't have a free for all because I don't want to put people in breakout rooms, and then it waters it down and it puts pressure on somebody to run it. And I'd rather just have everybody in the same space. It hasn't gotten out of control yet. I haven't had too big of a.
Well, that's the other side to it is it has no rhyme or reason, and it always, devolves into, some conversation about, hey, did you watch this movie or this show, or what are you drinking? Hey, and I feel bad.
It was Bears this morning, right?
Bears and Flugelhorn. Bears and Flugelhorn.
Yeah.
I had a Google Flugelhorn. Like I was like,
not getting it anywhere else. Man.
Not gonna get that anywhere. There's nowhere else on the planet you're having a conversation where it's like, I ran around a corner and there was an effing bear right there. Well, let me tell you about my Flugelhorn playing. Like that's not a normal conversation.
Yeah.
And it's always a lot of fun.
I was just gonna say, I think it's this is what at least my explanation for it. It's and I kept talking about layers this morning. We're getting down to these other layers of conversation. But if your typical, at least a lot of these that happen and even in formal networking events that Chamber might hold or something like that, they're always, what's your elevator pitch? You're trying to say something to introduce yourself. So you're practicing that and you're nervous and you're trying to talk about your company or whatever you're selling. And then there might be a topic to talk about. It may not resonate with everybody and maybe something that, skirts into some political uncomfortable areas or whatever. And then it's what you're asked at the end. Like this is none of that on purpose because for a few reasons, you already have enough of those meetings. And I also think that you really get to know people if you give them a chance to talk. So that's why I could try to make it comfortable and open and let anybody comment on anything, because that's what real conversation would be if you were just hanging out with people anyways. Sure, we're professionals and a lot of people trying to make connections and maybe, help their company or sell things or get new clients, whatever. But you're gonna have more success with that if you get to know people than just, I'm sure these people all need my service. They might, but they're probably not going to take you up on it unless they get to know you a little better. So and that's the other thing, back to, you're talking about networking advice, stick to it and just keep at it. And it's you're planting seeds the whole time. I used to know that my success would happen like a year later, just of things that I would do along the way. You stay in touch with people and some things don't come to fruition at all, but they might, and it may be months later, but it's the effort that you put in before that and staying in touch. And if you strike out the first time you meet somebody and give up on it, it's never going to happen. So,
well, you bring up a great point. And look, folks, if you want to know what Paul's got going on, again, it's paulhook.com. There's no ER at the end of that. It's just hook.com. I had to get it in there at least once. And then it's ourournetwork.network. And I was curious. Before I ask this question, what was it that you were showing me what you were drinking? What is it?
Oh yeah. I started. I couldn't wait anymore. So
I picked
this up. It's new for me. So Teeling Irish whiskey.
Where's it out of? Does it say where it's from?
Ireland.
Is it like? Is it legit like Ireland Irish whiskey?
Oh yeah. It's. I looked up. Yeah, Dublin. It says from Dublin. I looked up. I went to Empire today. Empire Wine. It's a little shameless plug for them. The place is awesome in Colony because they have great selection. And I've been a Jameson drinker for a while, and there's this other brand, Slate, that I love. That's really good, but I want to try something different. So I'm looking at Redbreast. I've had it like that, and I'm like, okay, so I'm there in the aisle. I'm sure millions of people do this, searching top 12 Irish whiskeys. Right. I just figure, okay, I got this occasion to buy something because I'm often drinking beer, but I'm an Irish whiskey guy in the winter. So I picked, and this was ranked really high, and it's single pot still, like Redbreast is, the Redbreast that I've had before. So I'm like, okay, I'll try this. This to me feel like it's got a little Scotch flavor to it, to be honest. But I still like it. I'm not as much of a Scotch drinker, but I do like it.
Well, I did
Sorry,
get
go
it.
ahead.
So I told you I had scotch for the first time, and then my spot up on Hoosier Street, the guy was like, I love him to death. So he got me to buy this Laphroaig. Like I couldn't tell you how to. Where's our two language specialists, Joel and
Yeah, get
Jeff?
Jeff on here. He could read it for
He
you.
can
Yeah.
tell me what that says. But this is Isle single malt Scotch whiskey, 10-year, aged in sherry oak finish. So
Very nice.
I'm looking forward to cracking that one open. But
Okay.
it's, I think kind of staying with the networking here for a second and staying with these different drinks. Networking is like drinking. Everybody has their different things and wants to tell you about it. And that's kind of what our hour is about, is like we all have our different things and whatnot. But what I was kind of curious of for you is there anything that you would say like, hey, this was my big win for somebody, like somebody that was on I know there was one girl, I haven't seen her in a while. I'm assuming she got something. I don't know if it was from being on our hour, but she was a blonde-haired lady with glasses. She was on all the time, and she had lost her job during all the pandemic stuff and some of the shutdowns. But is there anybody in particular that you would say like, hey, this person met this person through our hour, which is so relaxed and was able to like have a legit career now off of it?
Yep. So there's two that I point to, two unique things that happened, and there's others. I mean, I got at one point my largest client came out of it. Now I'll answer your question in a second, but with this, I'll preset it this way. I think it's similar to what you were started to say before. I don't do this as to rake in cash. Like I'm not charging people to go to this. I do it because I enjoy it. It's fun, and I met a lot of great people from it. And indirectly, which is the same thing I'm sure that's happened to you, indirectly I get work. And it's not, and even the reason why I got that client is because somebody actually said to me, Paul, what are you doing? You're not talking about yourself enough. And I wasn't there to be on a soapbox. I'm not there to sell stuff every week. I thought enough people knew. So I did. And then this other person on the call up and be like, I need that. So we ended up having a meeting and ended up working together for a while. But it's I do have some ideas to do some programs and other things with this that we could potentially charge for, but now it's more, it's indirect because people get to know me, and then I've gotten other clients out of it. I've gotten other work. So, but it's not really just all about me. But now I'm up to your question. Are there things that really come out that I can point to? And there are two unique things. One is kind of the stage you set. There was a really good friend of mine, was a marketing person in an industry that was not an agency. So it was a company where it's a whole bunch of smart people in the room that are smarter than marketing people. So she always had an uphill battle trying to promote them. You can imagine like old school paper and handshakes type of company. So
Gotcha.
she'd been having some challenges, and we talked about it a few times. There was a guy on that I knew, and it was on for the first time. He's only been on a couple of times. He was at a big agency. And after the call, he sent me an email, said he enjoyed it. And he said, a lot of people. I have two openings. One's at my agency, which is multi-state, and the other was at one of their biggest clients. He said, do you have anybody in mind? I said, yeah, you just met her. So I connected the two of them in email. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 weeks later, she had a job. She absolutely loves it. 2 years later, she still loves it. She's never on the calls anymore because she's too busy. But she was at the in-person last week, and she loves the job still, even after that much time. And respected, appreciated. They give her a lot of work, a lot of stuff to do. They ask her opinion on things and not like pushing her to the side. So, and her organization's grown. So that was big win, and a good friend of mine. So that was a cool thing. And the other one, you might have been around for this, maybe remember this, but I helped find a home for the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Well, I know all those guys. Mike Lanudo, that's how I met you, was through Mike.
Yep. He was on one of the calls, and Deb Gedeke, who works at Discover Albany, is the film commissioner. She was on. She's a blast, and she happened to be on that same week. And Michael said he's on their board. They were trying to find a home, and she said, the back when it was called Times Union Center. She said, they've got unique space at the Times Union Center. They're trying to get, promote and get some folks in there to do some different things. It's kind of cool and this and that. I think a couple weeks later he was in there looking at it, and they signed a contract a little bit after that and ended up with a home. But it was just, and that's that layers deep conversation you wouldn't have by what you're asked, or here's this topic, what do you think about? hybrid workforce or,
Oh God, yeah.
school bus driver shortage or whatever it is. You're not going to get to it. But somebody just started talking about something, and he said, we're looking for a home, and Deb just jumped right in. Oh, I know a place.
Oh, that's
Just,
awesome. I think you told me about, and what's funny about that one is people don't realize, like, if you're a pro wrestling fan, you would know this, but the
right.
Times Union Center, Knickerbocker, whatever you want to call it, MVP, actually has Pepsi has a huge pro wrestling history. The real famous during the Attitude Era, Steve Austin driving the beer truck into the arena, that was in Albany here. Like that's like they still play that like as a highlight reel, the beer truck coming right up to the stage. That was here in Albany. I mean, there's been some pretty famous matches here. And I think part of it, obviously, it's the capital region. It's just up from the city. You can get to it easy. Connecticut's not a long drive from WWE. So a lot of those guys are in their backyard. In Toronto, even people don't realize Toronto's a big wrestling area coming down from there. But that also kind of, thinking about all those different elements for a second, when you talk to people, because of your marketing background, to me, marketing is networking. It's building a network outside of just the people that are sitting next to you. You're marketing a company to build that trust, to build that mindset and that brand recognition, like you did with Sage and things of that nature. What are some of the things that either you brought in with our hour or that you've learned about maintaining a personal network and the value of that has come out of this?
Wow, let's see, how many ways can I answer that? I think and this is, there's a couple of things. So this helps maintain connections, and on this, I've had business development lead jobs, I've had sales jobs, but I've never approached it at the typical. And I'm saying that not that because I know you have that kind of a role too, but I don't even see you as a typical that way where, hey, when are we going to sign this deal? I've never been that way.
Folks, how about this deal right here? I'd love to show you all the things that I've got.
Operators are standing by and call now. But my little soft nudge technique. So I've got this weekly call, and if I haven't heard from somebody in a little while, I invite them to a coffee hour. I don't say, hey, we're going to do this project. It's just a little reminder kind of thing. So it does help me. There's another advantage of doing this, but it does help in other ways and stay out there in front of people. I don't talk about the marketing stuff as much, but I do talk about, promote our, but I also understand LinkedIn and the different social channels and their algorithm. So if I'm plugging stuff I almost said shit. I can swear on this, right? If I'm plugging shit like 2-3 times a day. All right. I just did it 3 times. Twice. Then people are going to see.
Really get the words going.
Yeah. All right. There's time. You haven't had her on yet?
No, I need to get her on because she was actually. I'll tell you about it here in a second. Go ahead. Yeah. Keep going.
But yeah, if you start fire hosing people on the social channels, then they just don't see it all. It's not that they're sick of seeing. Well, they could be, but they're sick of seeing everything from you. But if you're doing too much and it's not getting traction, then it stops getting in front of people's faces. So I know kind of the limitations with social media. So but I also have kind of a routine with what I'm putting out there for hour, then plugging a lot of my own stuff. Plus I'm pretty busy with work. For the marketing, my niche really is fractional marketing engagements. I don't know if I've talked about that much on the, I'm hired as a fractional CMO, fractional marketing director, meaning I'm part-time. So I can, as a consultant typically. So I have my two biggest clients where I have that kind of role. One is a statewide nonprofit that helps manufacturers, and the other is one of the colleges in the region. But I don't put that on my LinkedIn, but I'm on their websites as their marketing lead, and that's what I do. But the arrangement is good because they only need either X number of hours or they need the expertise that I have from doing this for 36 years or whatever. So, and it keeps the variety there, which is I'm more familiar with agency work where you can be working with a transit company and then a pharmaceutical and a nonprofit and maybe a music group or something. You got all different things, so it keeps it interesting and alive, but it also in this way keeps me engaged monthly where I have reoccurring hours and income, and then some project work around it. But if I went into my own thing just with project work, the timelines on some of those, especially websites, are so long that it's just a long time from the deposit to the finish of the project. So that's cycles around the fractional engagements, but that's my majority of my work is in those. So that's way off what you asked me. I didn't really answer your question.
That's more like that quick hitter. So that fractional is more like that quick hitter marketing, networking kind of a piece compared to like building big, large campaigns for something.
No, the fractional means, what I mean by that is that I'm maybe 10 to 16 hours a week for a company, as opposed to 40 full-time or 50 if it's always work more hours. But so that they're paying me less, but they're paying me more per hour because of my expertise, but their overall budget is less, no benefits and so on. But I have a few of those. So that gives me a full plate, full amount of work. But I didn't know that when I went out on my own. I thought I'm just doing a bunch of projects. I'm going to have my own agency. And we're going to work on this and that. It's going to be exciting. And then all of a sudden the first one dropped in my lap to run a team. So I do it differently. They're all different. Sometimes I'm managing a team. Sometimes I'm managing an outside agency or just coordinating. One time I was a mentor for a young guy right at 3 months out of college. I was kind of his mentor, I guess, for about a year and a half. And I was advisor and so on, but I was the fractional marketing director of the place. So it's very flexible. I can take on a different role with it. And I love that because it keeps it interesting. It's not, I'm not just figuring out how to sell one thing different every week for one company. They've got a few projects or products, and I'm just, what's a new way to say that, buy this. I'm doing it for different industries and different companies, and it keeps it fresh.
That's different what I thought you were explaining. Like, because I was picking up when I was like, oh, it's just like quick hitter kind of thing, not like, hey, 10, 15 hours. And that's interesting. Is that left turn here for a second?
I started it. So.
That's okay. This is what we do. Welcome to our hour at the nighttime.
Hour at night.
With two of the jackasses. But is it something that, like, was that a thing pre-pandemic, or is that like it kind of became a thing post?
I think it grew because the gig economy and the ability to work remotely grew, and people realized, oh, you can actually get stuff done when you're, working, digitally and Zoom like this and so on. I think the CFOs might have the CFO for hire kind of thing, that probably was the precursor for this. A lot of those roles that have been around. CMO for hire, that there are organizations that do that, but it definitely grew during pandemic. It existed before, but I don't think people saw the opportunity, the value, or the need in that. And I didn't create it. I kind of fell into it, but it's interesting. It's perfect for me. It's a great model and it works well, but I handle that well. I work that really well into what we present for business, but it did exist. But I'm sure that it boomed during this, and people realized that they can be so much more flexible and can work so many different ways.
Now I'm gonna put you on the spot with kind of an interesting question here. I'm a big fan of the term entrepreneur. You know what an entrepreneur is?
Oh, what do you mean?
So an entrepreneur is someone who learns that who they work for is their client. They don't treat them like an employer, but they treat them like a client, and they build their personal. And I hate saying I'm building my brand. No, you're not. You're building your reputation. It's for whatever reason we change reputation into brand. But they're building their reputation as a good employee, or as somebody that can be relied upon while working inside of a company. For yourself, how much, or what's the best way? How much of what you do now did you learn as that entrepreneur that was able to translate to being an entrepreneur, and how much were you like, oh shit, I can't use this anymore. Like, this doesn't work anymore because now I have to run the show. I can't this anymore. What kind of things, when you went off to doing it on your own, did you take with you that were valuable, or that you had to leave behind because you learned that they don't work as a business owner?
Well, you can relate to this, I'm sure. So a lot of the whole chief cook and bottle washer kind of thing. So you have to do a lot of things. And we do gravitate towards the things we like. I had, years ago, so I started at RPI as a tech illustrator. That was my first job. And then I worked in Yellow Pages, if you remember those, and other industries. But at one point I didn't have, I was working at a small design shop and in a weekly newspaper, and the newspaper shut down or was sold, and the design shop owner cut my hours. And so then I just ended up kind of going out on my own. But then it was graphic design. So I was just had my own studio. And that was one of the things that happened. Like I didn't, the whole invoicing and bookkeeping. So I know I got a deadline. So I just keep working on stuff and I'm not billing people. So you do, but from that experience, I learned, okay, you have to. But then being in an agency, you would have, there's a couple of things that happen. You got experts in certain areas. You might have specialists in certain things. And then this is all from the people that run the business part of it. So the sales, the bookkeeping, the any sort of accounts and running accounts, but any business functions to the creative teams and so on. So it's to a degree, it's smaller scale, but then some of the stuff is so much smaller scale that you don't have a person or even an external expert like a bookkeeper or something or an accountant. So you have to figure your time out for that stuff. But as far as and then you need to be good at delegating yourself. So I guess maybe this is answering your question, because
what do you mean by delegating yourself?
I have to know, since I call myself a recovering designer, I was a designer and I still can do some design up, but I know where my limits are, either in, should I do this massive project or this kind of tricky campaign for this challenging client or really short timeline, or can I do this or should I do this because of the budget size? So I'll make decisions on things I want to work on, but I know from all the places I've been at and the teams that I've built and people I've worked with who I can bring in to be part of the team. If I need a writer, Karen, I know she's been on your program. She's done a couple of projects for me, and I can write, but I can do some things that, that may need to do something that's faster. I may need to write copy for, an email campaign or this, update this website or something like that. But I'm doing something unique, original. It's monthly blogs. It's whatever. I know Karen, I know. So I have to regulate. That's the word. Did I say delegate? Or maybe I meant regulate.
Either way, I get it.
I've only had a little of this, really. It's I got to regulate where my line is. How far do I? Because if I take everything on, then I'm getting a little bit done of everything, and I'm not getting anything done, and then you get unhappy clients that way. So I'm lucky from doing this so long. I've got a deep bench in all the specialization areas. So Olivia, who works with me, has a lot of technical work, SEO, podcast editing, social media, etc. So she's great and reliable for that kind of stuff. But if I have, maybe if I got 3 or 4 clients that are doing that, I'm doing some of that, or I've got other people that she works with sometimes on the outside that could bring in on the team. Or if I get something that's, if I had something that was a college or a bank or something that's a specific industry, I may bring in someone I know or I trust or I've worked with that is a specialist in that industry. I can be part of the team because I can pick their brain and have that knowledge from their experience as part of it. So that's the other, not as much in the fractional engagements, because the team's already set, but in the projects and campaigns and opportunities I get, do I bring in a super team of awesome individuals that have done great stuff that I've worked with before? Or the other option, and I've explored this, is I partner with an agency, and I've done pitches with agencies because they brought me in because they knew I knew the people there. I knew the marketing director. I have the relationships. They have the skill. They can turn it around. So, but I can be part of the team because I understand the industry and I know them. So it's cool to find. I really enjoy finding the slot where I go in, where can I, sure, a lot of these, and there, a bunch of these people are even on our calls, so they'll come to our hour. They can be my competition, but they can be my partner too. And I don't hold anything against anybody.
Being independent. Being independent, you don't. I'm the same thing. Look, I'm the same thing with what I do. I think most people know I own the budget blinds, but if you don't, I'll say it again. And I'm the same way. Like I've had people like, well, this is what I'm looking for. I'm like, I'm not your guy. And they're like, what? I'm like, listen, I would love to do this, but I'm not your fix it, flip it guy. I'm much more custom, everything, I'm your single point of success with everything you do. I'm not going to pass everything off. So if you're looking for like, I'll measure it, I'll install it, you just give me the product. Don't call me. I'm not the guy you want. Go to blinds.com, go to Home Depot, Lowe's. They're
Close or
great.
something. Yeah.
I'm not your
Right.
guy. And people will be like, I can't believe you. I'm like, no, I just don't want you to, I don't want you to waste your time and money on me
Yeah.
because I'm going to give you like this amazing service and you're going to be like, I didn't want that. And that's understandable. Real quick here, folks, we're getting close to closing the bar and we're calling this a new segment. We're going to see how this works for us. This is going to be the New Scotland Spirits last call. If you're looking for a spirit that's as bold and rich as New York history, New Scotland Spirits is crafted exceptionally locally sourced whiskey that tells a story with every sip, from grain to glass, with honor tradition while pushing the boundaries of flavor. Whether you're a whiskey connoisseur or just starting, there's a bottle waiting for you. Raise your glass to true craftsmanship for New Scotland Spirits near you, or visit newscotlandspirits.com to learn more. New Scotland Spirits, where history and flavor meet. Sounds pretty good, right?
That sounds
I
good.
love
Yeah.
I love Chat GPT. Let me just tell you, Chat GPT is the shit. But yeah, so and there's I'm definitely a homer. I'm a homer so bad. Like as soon as I move somewhere, I want to know everything locally, what's there, what's
Yeah.
happening, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's another part of what makes our hour. And folks, if you want to know about our hour again, paulhook.com, ourhour.network. You can find out about it. Paul send you the link. You can come hang out with us. You might think that I'm a crazy person to tell you that it's worth checking out regardless of where you live. You might be out in Texas, you could be out in, you know, up in Washington State. It's worth it to pop in, see what's on there, see what people are talking about, see what's happening. The capital region of New York is a very interesting micro. I don't even know how to describe it. Like it's super boring here. Like there's nothing happening in the capital region, but everything's happening in the capital region. Like they get excited. This weekend's Chowder Fest, and it's a great, like it's a great experience. But at the same time, this is the same place where when Joe's Crab Shack showed up in the town of Latham, people camped out for days for it to open. I would never camp out for a mass produced, but that's the capital region and that networking piece. What are some of the well, I know we got some R hours coming up, the in-persons. What's the next in-person?
Oh, the next one's they're always the last Thursday of the month, unless we run into a holiday, and that happened the end of last year. So both Halloween and Thanksgiving were the last Thursday of those months. So I had to move them around, but you can almost always count it being the last Thursday. So it'll be February 27th. It's going to be at the Palazzo, which is newer. It's a newer restaurant. It's an Italian restaurant. It's awesome. It was Joe's Pizza, I think, and I think it was Joe's in Schenectady. So they renovated into a full-blown Italian, really awesome bar, huge bar, a little stage in the back for music, and the owner came out and chatted with us for a little while. Really looking forward to having us. So that's cool when the ownership or the management, we get to talk with them and embrace it, because the last few times that they've come out, make sure we're having a good time. And I usually,
Nice.
we get like 20, 25 people at this, and sometimes up to 40. We had at one of them, and they can be smaller, like the one. There's always that kind of that dead Thursday between Christmas and New Year, so that's tiny, so intimate. I think we had 7 or 8 people at that one, but it's like every Wednesday morning at 8:30 is the coffee hour. I think it's valuable. It just comes out of marketing. Is you pick a time that people can remember, then you don't have to look for it. So it's always Wednesday morning 8:30, always the last Thursday. So that's
Wednesday evening 8 p.m. Like,
yep, yeah.
That's right. You know what? Aside complete, because I want to talk about what other things you got coming up. But have you ever? Because I've had this happen to me, and it's almost insulting to me. Have you ever had somebody say to you about our hour, like, "Is there any way you can change that so that I can be there, like just for them?"
No, they haven't done that, but they have. I mean, there are plenty of people that have beanies at that time, so it's just
right,
and then they're not able to do it, and I get it.
I've had
I joke,
like,
I say, "Oh, let me move it to 9 for you," and they laugh because they know let me move it to the next day. But there are there are other opportunities. We'll do some pop-up coffee ones every now and then, because Motor Oil Coffee sponsors by giving me coffee to give to people. So So we'll go to one of their locations, occasionally on a Friday morning or something. And then, I'm moving. What's that again?
Motor Oil that was in Troy. I don't know if it's gone now. I know there's another restaurant there.
It hasn't been in Troy. They had a short lease, or like they were trying it out. So Joe Bonilla, who owns it, has tried him and a partner that tried it in a couple places with a short-term lease just to see if it would work out. But the ones they've stuck with are the one at the top of the hill on State Street in Albany, and then down at Slip 12, the old Huck Finn's complex.
Okay.
That's expanded, actually. They've got spirits and everything else in the evening, so we may end up doing an hour happy hour down there at some point. But
that's a great location if they're in that Slip 12, because you've got an entire building full of people that are looking for coffee in the morning. Hit it and go. That's genius.
Yep.
No, I have people that will tell me like, can you go ahead and move your podcast up an hour for me? No, bro, this is a live show, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday, and they're like,
you're recording it. That's one thing,
but they're like, I'm like, this is live. They're like, yeah, but can you move it up? Like no, bro. Like, I'm not moving this for you. I don't even know you. Like, you reached out to me.
You can offer the version where you just talk about them without them being there for an hour and just read their bio over and over and over again.
Bro, I have been on this and been like minutes from starting the show, and the guests still not show up. And like, I'm sending messages, and I'm like, where? I had one time. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to reschedule. My son just fell off of his bicycle like 5-10 minutes before the show starting. I'm like, are we effing serious? Put a Band-Aid on it and let's go. I can be heartless with it. So we've got the live events coming up. We got the one on February 27th. Any other like hints you can give us, or any other things that are coming from our hour that you didn't know were out there, or you didn't realize would be a thing that might be coming along?
Well, there's I teased this a little. Oh, look at that, Silky. She's awesome.
Now, I don't know if Silky realizes who I am, but I know Silky, and she's absolutely amazing.
I got to stop you for a second because Silka is her name, but
whatever. I know.
I think she said it by mistake once, and I never forgot, so I keep saying Silky, but that's fine.
I know her from through Miriam's shows, and then I met her at one of Miriam's lives.
She used to come to the hours, but then she got a client that had Wednesday morning as a time slot. So every now and then she'll pop in, but she does come to the in-person. She was there last week at Bentley's. We were up at Bentley's in Malta for the January one up in Saratoga County. So yeah, she's a regular to the in-person. She came to the tiny one. I said the one that we did, the Helderberg Mead Works, their Troy location. That was December.
Okay.
Well, she was at that one, but yeah, as far as things coming up. So yeah, so I actually, there's a couple things I'm trying to do. I've got some friends that enjoy the recon work that we do. So I always go to check out places about a month ahead to make sure that if there's enough room, it's not like closed for private event. It's not trivia night. There's enough karaoke or whatever. There's enough room for, our throng of people, 20 to 30 people that were comfortable. Some places they're just not set up that way. It's all tables, or that's too small, or they rely on outdoor, and if the weather's bad. So I always want to check out first and then meet the owner if I can, and just let them know, hey, bring a bunch of people. Is that cool? And they're usually 9 times out of 10, they're fine. Sometimes you get we got to bring in extra staff and we got to charge you for that. Like, nah, I'm just bringing people to your company. I'm just telling a bunch of people to go spend money at your place. How's that? Right. So usually it's fine. But there are a couple ideas. So there's some, I talked a little bit about some ideas for programs and things that I want to roll out. That's not ready yet, but I would like to do some super networking event, some like big thing with all these groups that, Miriam and Lauren that do the 518 and the AMA and Denise, who does her sales club, and Denise Haran. So a bunch of these groups that just do one mega thing, but I'm still in the works on that. But one thing I will tease, and I mentioned Rose Miller kind of helped me with this idea. I have been contemplating doing an hour north in Glens Falls, just 1 month, just going, scooting up. But Rose had a really good idea about the kind of Coxsackie area to do an hour south.
Oh, yeah.
Down in Greene County. So, I mean, I've said this and she said it before, like we're programmed. So this is for the people in the capital region. We're all programmed to look north whenever we're going to spend a weekend or Leaf
Yep.
Peep or whatever you're going to do. We're all going to Lake George or Sacandaga or going to
Yep.
Scroon where I have a place and or Lake Placid, whatever. We don't go south. There's awesome stuff south, and it's not that far away. So that's we're going to expand our footprint a little bit. So those are a couple of the things I think I'm looking at either June or July for the south, and probably September for north. When the leaves are awesome, up in Glens Falls. So that'll just add a couple of other. It'll still be that last Thursday. I'm just going to go in some different areas, but so I think now that I've said it publicly, I have to do it. What'd you say?
I'll give you a spot if you go south.
Okay.
Chatham Brewery. Talk to the folks at Chatham. So it's right in the city of Chatham. They've got an amazing brewery. It's a cool little town. The bar, their local spot is next to the train tracks. And really from that's one of those areas that we forget that it's not far away from us when you're in the really so for the territories that I own, that's and those locations are great ideas. I can help spread the word amongst agencies that can spread the word to their tribe. Absolutely. And it's funny to me as we're kind of thinking, and I'm thinking about locations. My wife and I were watching Beat Bobby Flay recently. And I don't know if you ever, I love food shows. And the chef was from this restaurant called 111 in Philmont. And I don't know if you know where Philmont is. Philmont's in, see, that's what's funny is Philmont's in Columbia County.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Exactly. Columbia County out towards like Austerlitz, Chatham, Hillsdale, all those. And this woman is like a world-class chef, and the restaurant's called 111. And I said to my wife, I was like, this is our backyard. This isn't far. I drive there all the time. It's 30, 40 minutes from the house, and we can go check this out and have a meal. That's one of the, look, folks, I'm going to promote the Capital Region for a second. You may have heard of Hudson Paintings, like that Hudson Art. That's where we're at. That's to the south of us. We have world-class wineries around us. We have some of the best distilleries on the East Coast, because even when Lord Commander Cuomo was in office, one of the great things he did was you could get a distiller's license for $1,000 as long as 75% of your product came from New York State. So we got all these distilleries that popped up. So we've got that going on. We've got so much going on around here, but at the same time, unless you live here, people are scared to come here. They think that like this is Nanook of the North and we're all walking around in the frozen tundra of like, like there's 40 feet of snow outside and like you can't move around. They think it's Watertown, and we're nothing like that. We're actually, I just learned this because of the valley of the Hudson Valley. We get very little snow itself. That's why people settled in this area. So there's so many cool things to do here. And there's winter, like the fact there's winter activities always blows my mind. But if you do anything south, I know Rose, who's been on the show, she knows way more over that way. But I travel through these areas. We could definitely.
Always looking for more ideas, and that's where people will tell me about places. It's rarely the restaurant owners. It's just people that have been. Oh, you ever heard of that place? Like we did one at the Flats in Clifton Park a few months ago. That I went to a lunch with. The person that I said helped get the job from her job was introducing me to someone new there, and we went to the Flats. Like, what is this place? and it was out. It's not in the real crowded area park. But it's out this other. I'm like, oh, this place is great, and I just had never heard of it, and it's been there for only a little over a year. But I keep finding new places, and that's the coolest thing about it is that half the people have never been to the place. So what'd you say?
I'm gonna give you an idea for one. I don't know other than Rose or anybody else who's down south would go to. Check out, and I don't know what their hours are. Gracie's Luncheonette in Leeds. By far the best burger in this entire area, like hands down. Nobody touches their burger by far. But they have liquor, they have all that, and they have a full blown thing. I don't know. That'd be an interesting one. But but that's going to lead us into this question. Then we got to get ready to close everything up here. Now, here is, Nate's not on right now, but if Nate was here, we've asked this. I think I'm going to just keep this as my capital region question. My buddy Nate would always ask food related questions. I'm going to keep this as my capital region question.
Mm-hmm.
Are we Hot Dog Charlie's, Famous Lunch, or Gus's? Which is it?
Yeah. Well, for me, and it's historical. So I've had them all, but Famous Lunch is my place because I started working at RPI, and then one of my next jobs was in the J building, the incubator building that RPI ran was the first incubator in the country for companies, up and coming companies. Yeah, it was their original idea. And then I was in one of two companies in that building that wasn't tech. It wasn't a tech startup. It was a design firm. So I worked with this guy, Randy Rumpf, who's a great guy, and he really got me started. If anybody knows RPI and you know hockey, the puck man, the swinging puck logo, he's a cartoonist, and that's his design work and so on. But we would go down to Famous Lunch, and the hot dogs on the arm with all the mustards, and hand them, like, you want 20 here, there, and just right in the window cooking all that. I think I might have made the comment of gut. I mean, I love them all. The Hot Dog Charlie's I used to go to I lived in Waterford for a while, so there's one at Cohoes that at Fire, and that's gone, right? I don't know what other Hot Dog Charlie's. Yeah. No, my daughter or somebody told me that it was maybe about.
I know exactly the one you're talking about, like the stretch of rope between Waterville and Cohoes right there.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know what other ones there are. There's other Hot Dog Charlie's. I just don't know where they are.
Hot Dog Charlie's on 9 and 20. There's one on 9 and 20.
All right.
Where's that other? Yeah, there's a couple of them around.
Yeah,
and then there's Gus.
But Gus is. I mean, I've only been there a couple of times, and I just remember sitting inside and looking around, saying, "This is open. This is allowed to be open." It was. I mean, awesome. The food's great, but I just was like, "Wow, okay."
that is Gus's. Yeah. Like, my wife was just telling somebody, like, as the buns are getting ready, they get like shot down a conveyor into a trash can, and people are like, "What?" And my wife's like, "Is this normal?" I'm like, "It's sanitary. It's like, it's brand new. It's food grade. It's food grade. You're fine. God made dirt. Dirt won't hurt. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Right. Eat it fast. You'll be fine. It'll come out just as fast."
For most experiences, a Famous Lunch, I've been there a bunch of times, and I haven't been there in a while. But you're immediately bringing back the memories, and I can smell the place even, just because I went there a bunch back in the day when I was working in Troy. But yep,
Famous. So we're going with Famous Lunch here. I think Kat actually said famous lunch also. I think that was her call was Famous Lunch. I think it's going to be my go-to question for people in the capital region is which one do they pick out of the three?
And they're not physically that far apart from each other, so it's not like a regional thing. Like, they're really. I mean, you can almost walk the Gus's from Famous Lunch. It's not. It's gonna be a little bit of a walk, but it's not like
whatever the water.
You have to go over a bridge.
Yeah,
it's a go over the bridge again. I don't know.
Right there.
People might not see the bridge. It's
bridges separate us all. They should be bringing us together, but they separate us. But they should bring us together.
I think that was the point. Together. Yeah.
I hear you. Well, all that being said, I know Paul understands this is like he's on 250. I'm on I think he's 268 or 269. I gotta look. I forget him all the time, but I know he has binge watched all these while preparing himself to be on the show. He just absorbed as much of the Above the Bar podcast culture as he could. And he knows what's coming up, but just in case he doesn't, I'll remind him the guest always gets the final word. And don't log off on me afterwards, Paul. We got to talk for just a moment. Okay. The guest always gets the final word. So what's the final word for tonight, Paul?
Jeez. Wow, let's see. I wasn't ready for this. That's good. I'm glad you didn't prepare me. That just put me on my toes. I think, part the theme of what you want to talk to me about networking. And it really is a long play, but it doesn't need to take forever. So why I say that is, you have to plant little seeds. You got to have conversations. You got to stay in front of people. You have to be seen. You got to speak up. You got to raise your hand. You got to shake hands and so on. But if you do that enough, if you're looking at it like how many cards I hand out and how many contracts am I getting back, that's the short win. I mean, rarely do you ever go to a network, any sort of event. You go to a business review event, chamber, whatever, shake a hand with somebody and they hand you a check. Like, or I need you today. Oh, we love those moments. And I'm sure you've had a few of those where somebody just needs you right away. If I'll tell this one little quick story and we can let this explain it. I had a friend who had been involved with a big agency, was on her own, was trying to decide if she wanted to build an agency again. So she met with the owner of Over It and me at the same time. I brought her in to have a meeting and she said, how long is your sales cycle? And we both answered at the same time, 2 totally different answers. He said 3 months. I said a year. And she looked at both of us. The thing is, we were both right, because Dan, the owner, gets a call when somebody needs something. And it takes about 3 months roughly to get the deal figured out. What do we need? Is what it costs. When are we going to start? Me, I'm talking to people about us. So it takes about a year before they finally pull the trigger and make the decision. So I'm doing it first. When they need something, they're calling, but I'm planting the seeds to get it to that point, whether they call me or they call the company. So wherever I am. So it's a long play, but it's doable, and it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to be painful. If you're introverted and you have a hard time talking, got plenty of people on our hour that don't talk, that just enjoy the conversation. But you also can go to events with a wingman. Go with somebody else. Have your own conversations. People will want to talk to people that are talking. If they're just standing there on your phone, they think you're busy or you don't want to talk, so they're not going to talk to you. But it's easier to get something going. And I often, will meet people because somebody will introduce me. I'm not even though I will run these networking things and seem to be outgoing, I'm not barging in a room saying, "Hey, look at me. Hey," I'm shaking hands with people I don't know. I'm not that either. I'm looking for the way in, like the person that I know, or maybe it's, might be next to somebody in the line and might just make some small talk, but usually it's through somebody I know. So there's a whole bunch of ways to make it happen, but just, you don't have to go and stretch yourself out and stress yourself out and spend hours preparing and making sure you got your pitch perfect and everything. Be yourself, but just try to stay out there and stay in front of people and keep talking and saying hello and making sure they know what you do, because when they need it, you want them to remember you and be top of mind. And that's many of the ways to do it. So
already, folks.
It was a long answer. But
already, folks, be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.